foreign. They used to be weeks, back in the good old days, when I had to find something to write about here in this quiet little town. I'm Michael DeWitt Jr., managing editor at the Hampton County Guardian. And then these Murdaugh incidents began, and things haven't been quiet since then. Attorney Alex Murdaugh said he was shot in the head while changing a tire on this road in Hampton County, South Carolina. Then, police arrested 61-year-old Curtis Smith. Police say Murdaugh hired Smith to kill him. He wanted you to kill him. Yeah, he wanted me to kill him to make it look like a suicide may happen. Why did you agree to sit down with us? I think people should hear my side of it. You'll hear a lot more from Curtis Smith, the man accused of shooting high-profile attorney Alex Murdaugh, right here on this rural road in Hampton County, South Carolina. Just one incident in a bizarre and tragic series of deadly events touching the Murdaugh family. The shooting of Alex Murdaugh comes nearly 3 months after his son and his wife were both found shot in Colleton County. First, there's the double murder of his wife and son, Maggie and Paul Murdaugh. Alex told investigators he came home and found them. They were both shot multiple times. It's not Alex Murdaugh. Do we really know who Alex Murdaugh is? I think we thought we did, up until the double homicides. We thought that Alex Murdaugh was this prominent, wealthy, entitled attorney. When you are from a family that has been prominent for generations, it comes with access and connections. When Maggie and Paul Murdaugh were found dead, who were the most likely suspects? Two common theories that were going around were, 1. Alex Murdaugh had something to do with it. Did he murder his wife and son? No. Does he have any idea who did? No. Another theory was that this was somehow related to the boat crash that killed teenager Mallory Beach. Allegedly drunk, there's 6 of us, and 1 is missing. Okay, who's missing? Female, Mallory Beach, who was driving the boat. You all know Alex Murdaugh. That's his son. Good luck. That's what he indicated. That he couldn't be touched. Never set foot into jail. Do you feel that Mallory has gotten justice? I don't. That's just hard to answer. All I ever wanted was for him to get on the stand and say, I'm sorry. Then, there's another incident with a connection to the Murdaughs. The mysterious death of 19-year-old Stephen Smith. His body was found in a roadway with a wound to the head. The rumors were that there were several young men in a truck. The only name that was given to me was the Murdaugh name. And of course, everybody's kind of scared to say that out. You know what I mean. I don't think anybody will be charged with Stephen Smith's homicide. Shot this past weekend, himself. Of all the theories swirling around Maggie and Paul's murders, what's the lead theory today? Now, I'm hearing more popular theories that he was somehow involved in this. This is like a whodunit playing out in real time on the internet, in the age of social media, like a John Grisham novel come to life. We're now in the 3rd act, and things have gotten weird. How will it end? With this story, anything can happen. Thank you. Paul Murdaugh and his mother were both found shot to death. The shooting of Alex Murdaugh. Alex Murdaugh was shot in the head over the weekend. Disgraced lawyer Alex Murdaugh surrendered to authorities today. One story has practically dominated the news cycle in South Carolina's Low Country since 2021. It's a series of cases that the locals have dubbed the Murdaugh mysteries, all somehow connected to prominent and powerful local attorney Alex Murdaugh, my wife and son. Thank you. But how did it come to this? Michael DeWitt, editor of the Hampton County Guardian, part of the Gannett USA Today network, says Alex Murdaugh came from a family that, over generations, grew deep roots and amassed power and influence in this part of South Carolina. The Murdaughs built an empire of sorts here in the Low Country. It began over a century ago, when the family established a law firm. 3 generations of Murdaugh men also held the public office of solicitor, the chief prosecutor. Alex didn't continue the tradition. Alex inherited the last name, the red hair, and very little of the talent. Thank you. Alex worked as a volunteer prosecutor in the office, but primarily, he made a good living in the family law firm. He married his college sweetheart, Maggie, and they had 2 sons, Buster and Paul. They lived a good life, spending time at their 1,700-acre estate and to private islands. They have now generations of political power and political support, and contacts, and access, and with access comes power, said Seth Staunton, a law professor at the University of South Carolina. A powerful legal family in small-town South Carolina has a lot of levers they can pull. But it seemed like someone was out to challenge that power, with what appeared to be an attempt on Alex Murdaugh's life. Thank you. According to his lawyer, Alex Murdaugh told investigators he was changing a flat tire right here on this rural road when a person in a pickup truck passed by, asked Alex if he was having car trouble, and then shot him in the head. When I turned my back, they tried to shoot me. They shot me, but incredibly, just 12 days later, on September 16th, Alex Murdaugh appeared in court for allegedly trying to plan his own death by conspiring with this man, Curtis Smith, to shoot him. Did you shoot Alex Murdaugh? No. Thank you. When did you first meet Alex Murdaugh? About 35 years ago. Smith, a handyman, says he is a distant cousin of Murdaugh, but only got to know Alex well a few years ago, and says he started doing odd jobs for the family. We talked on the phone most days, just chatting back and forth about different things. You've described Alex as like a brother to you, like a brother to me. Smith was released on bond, and now faces 6 felony charges in the shooting of Alex Murdaugh. Murdaugh himself will face 3 charges in the shooting, but with several ongoing investigations and lawsuits looming, many wonder when and how this steep fall from grace will end. Alex Murdaugh's world unraveled, and unraveled quickly, says DeWitt. It all started back in February 2019. Things began unraveling for the Murdaugh family with the boat crash. We're in a boat crash on Archers Creek, one of the boat passengers said during a frantic 911 call. It was around 2:20 a.m. on February 24, 2019, when 6 young friends who had been partying crashed the Murdaugh family's boat into a bridge. Among them was 19-year-old Paul Murdaugh, who was reportedly driving, and 19-year-old Mallory Beach, who disappeared in the water after the crash. There's 6 of us, and 1 is missing. Who's missing? Female, Mallory Beach. She's in the water. Mallory Beach was described as a fun-loving and happy young woman. She was just this wonderful, fun-loving, happy girl, and everybody loved her, said her aunt, Lynn Revis, who was devastated by the news. Lynn and Mallory were extremely close, and the last thing Mallory had told her aunt was that she loved her. That fatal night began at the Murdaugh family's river home, where the group of 6 friends gathered for a night of partying. All were underage, but alcohol was a significant part of the evening. Earlier that night, Paul Murdaugh used his older brother Buster's ID to buy beer at a convenience store, a moment caught on surveillance footage. In the footage, Paul could be seen holding the beer aloft as if celebrating. Later that night, the group took the Murdaugh family boat out, and Paul, despite being intoxicated, insisted on driving. Investigators would later piece together a timeline of the night. Based on data from the boat's Garmin navigation system, the timeline shows the group arriving at a party at a house on the river, around 8 p.m. afterward. They continued drinking at various locations, and just after midnight, Paul and another passenger, Connor Cook, decided to stop at a bar. Paul was visibly intoxicated, and witnesses said his behavior became increasingly erratic. Miley Altman, another passenger, told investigators that the rest of the group didn't want Paul to go into the bar, but Paul insisted. He was very persistent about going into the bar, Miley said in a police interview. Inside, Paul and Connor drank more, downing shots despite already being heavily intoxicated. At around 1:15 a.m., the group got back on the boat. As Paul took the wheel again, the tension among the group increased. Paul reportedly became erratic, steering the boat in circles and refusing to let anyone else drive. The final moments leading up to the crash were chaotic. Miley told investigators that Paul and Connor argued over control of the boat. At one point, Paul took over again, insisting on driving. Then, at 2:20 a.m., the Garmin navigation system recorded the boat accelerating, moments before it collided with Archer's Creek Bridge. The impact threw Mallory Beach from the boat into the dark water, where she disappeared. When first responders arrived, they found the remaining passengers, all in shock, standing near the wreckage of the boat. Paul Murdaugh was reportedly unfazed, and according to Anthony Cook, Mallory's distraught boyfriend, Paul was even smiling. Anthony was furious, saying that Paul seemed indifferent despite the fact that Mallory was missing. He was smiling, while Anthony's girlfriend's missing in the water, one of the deputies on the scene recalled. Anthony Cook later told police that Paul Murdaugh had been driving the boat at the time of the crash. "You all know Alex Murdaugh. That's his son. Good luck," Anthony told the responding officer, expressing a belief that the Murdaugh's influence would shield Paul from accountability. The search for Mallory Beach went on 4 days, with volunteers and authorities scouring the waters for her body. 8 days later, her body was discovered about 5 miles downstream from the crash site. For her family, the grief was unbearable. "I was at home when someone called and said they had found her," Lynn Revis remembered. "I just fell apart." Mallory's death shook the community, and many attended her funeral. Even the Murdaughs were there, but the Beach family was left wondering whether there would ever be accountability for her death. In the aftermath of the crash, Mallory's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against members of the Murdaugh family, including Paul. Paul, who was charged with 3 felony counts of boating under the influence, pleaded not guilty and was released on bond. Despite the serious charges, many felt that Paul was not being held accountable, especially when reports surfaced that he was never handcuffed or jailed. His bond was set at $50,000, and he continued to live his privileged lifestyle while awaiting trial. Meanwhile, the Beach family continued to grieve, waiting for justice. "I don't know how it happened, but Paul never spent a day in jail," Lynn said. "We were just waiting to see if someone was going to make an arrest, or if there would be any accountability." But accountability seemed distant, and Paul continued to live freely, even getting a speeding ticket while towing a boat a year after the crash. The Beach family feared that their daughter's death would go unpunished, that the Murdaugh influence would keep Paul above the law. That fear seemed to solidify when, in June 2021, just as Paul was awaiting trial, tragedy struck again. Alex Murdaugh called 911, reporting that he had found his wife, Maggie, and his son, Paul, shot dead at their family estate. At 10:07 p.m. on June 7, 2021, Alex Murdaugh sounded panicked as he told the 911 operator that he had returned home to find his wife and son, both shot multiple times. "Maggie and Paul," he stammered, "please hurry." First responders arrived at the Murdaugh family's sprawling estate, but it was too late. Paul and Maggie were both dead. The place that had once been a family retreat, where Paul had spent time honing his shooting skills, had now become the scene of a gruesome double murder. The murders of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh only deepened the mystery and intrigue surrounding the Murdaugh family, who had killed them, and why. As investigators searched for answers, more questions arose about Alex Murdaugh, his family, and their power over the local community. Alex's 911 call set off a wave of speculation and theories about the Murdaugh family, and their many scandals began swirling. Had the boat crash lawsuit and the resulting scrutiny triggered the murders? Were these killings an act of revenge or something more sinister? The investigation was far from over, and with the series of events involving the Murdaughs, the story seemed to be only getting darker. As investigators dug deeper into the murders of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh, the mystery around the powerful family only grew. The public was left questioning who would target the Murdaughs, and what could the motive possibly be. With the weight of generations of influence behind them, it seemed almost inconceivable that someone would so brazenly kill two members of such a prominent family. But the scrutiny was inevitable, as the case unfolded in real time and every twist became a media sensation. One of the first avenues explored by law enforcement was the possibility of a connection between Paul Murdaugh's pending legal troubles from the boat crash and the murders. After all, Paul had been facing felony charges for Mallory Beach's death, and the wrongful death lawsuit filed by her family was still looming. Did the pressure of the upcoming trial play a role in Paul's death? Or did someone with a personal vendetta against the Murdaugh family take drastic action? Rumors and theories began circulating through the small South Carolina community and beyond. Some believed that someone related to the boat crash, perhaps even the Beach family, or one of Mallory's friends, could have been seeking revenge. Others speculated that the powerful enemies the Murdaughs may have made over the years had come back to haunt them. As whispers grew louder, the investigation seemed to become more and more complex, but the most shocking twist in the case was yet to come. Just 3 months after the murders of Maggie and Paul, Alex Murdaugh himself became the focus of a bizarre and troubling incident. On September 4, 2021, Alex Murdaugh claimed he had been shot in the head while changing a flat tire on a rural road in Hampton County. According to Murdaugh, a stranger in a pickup truck had stopped and asked if he needed help. Then, without warning, the person shot him in the head. Incredibly, Alex survived, though the wound was described as superficial. The shooting of Alex Murdaugh instantly made headlines, adding a new layer of mystery to the unfolding saga. Was this an attempt on his life, or something else entirely? As it turned out, the truth was even stranger than anyone had imagined. Just days later, Alex Murdaugh's lawyer, Dick Harpootlian, dropped a bombshell. He revealed that the entire shooting had been staged by Alex Murdaugh himself. Murdaugh had allegedly hired a man, Curtis Eddie Smith, to shoot him, as part of a scheme to have his surviving son, Buster, collect a $10 million life insurance payout. According to Harpootlian, Alex had been battling a long-standing opioid addiction and was in a state of emotional and financial turmoil. In an act of desperation, he concocted the plan to have Smith kill him, making it appear as though it had been a random murder, so that Buster could receive the insurance money. Smith, a distant cousin of Murdaugh and a handyman who had worked for the family for years, was arrested and charged in connection with the botched suicide for hire plot. In a bizarre interview with CBS News, Smith denied shooting Alex Murdaugh. "Did you shoot Alex Murdaugh?" The interviewer asked. "No," Smith replied. He admitted, however, that Alex had asked him to do so. "He wanted me to kill him," Smith said. "He wanted me to make it look like a suicide." The revelation of Alex Murdaugh's staged shooting sent shockwaves through the community and the broader public. The man who had once been seen as a respected attorney from a distinguished family was now embroiled in a web of lies, deceit, and criminal behavior. But as investigators dug deeper into Alex's life, even more disturbing details came to light. Around the time of the shooting, Alex Murdaugh resigned from his family's prestigious law firm after being accused of embezzling millions of dollars from the firm and its clients. The alleged financial crimes stretched back years, and the sum involved was staggering. Murdaugh's world was unraveling at a breakneck pace, and his long-standing reputation was in tatters. In the wake of the staged shooting and the financial scandal, Alex Murdaugh's legal troubles only intensified. In addition to the charges related to the suicide for hire plot, he was soon facing charges of fraud, money laundering, and theft. The scope of his alleged crimes was vast, and prosecutors painted a picture of a man who had been living a double life for years, one as a successful attorney and family man, and the other as a manipulative figure engaged in a massive financial fraud scheme. But the question of who killed Maggie and Paul Murdaugh remained unanswered. Was Alex involved in their murders, as some speculated? Or was there another player in this tangled web of deceit and violence? Investigators were still working to piece together the puzzle, but with Alex Murdaugh's credibility shattered, many wondered whether he knew more than he was letting on. As the months passed, Alex Murdaugh's legal troubles continued to mount. He was charged with dozens of counts related to financial crimes, and the pressure on him only grew. Then, in July 2022, a shocking development occurred. Alex Murdaugh was indicted for the murders of his wife and son. The indictment alleged that Alex Murdaugh had orchestrated the killings of Maggie and Paul, though the exact motive remained unclear. Some speculated that financial pressure, mounting legal issues, and the fallout from the boat crash lawsuit had pushed Alex to a breaking point, leading him to commit the unthinkable. Others believed that his opioid addiction had clouded his judgment, causing him to act irrationally. The arrest of Alex Murdaugh for the murders of his wife and son marked a dramatic turning point in the saga that had captivated the nation. The once prominent attorney, who had seemed untouchable for so long, was now facing the ultimate reckoning. As he awaited trial, the public was left to wonder whether justice would finally be served for Maggie, Paul, Mallory Beach, and all the others whose lives had been touched by the Murdaugh family's tragic and scandalous downfall. With Alex Murdaugh's trial looming, the story continued to unfold in ways no one could have predicted. The man whose family had wielded power and influence for generations was now at the center of one of the most shocking criminal cases in recent history, and the full scope of his actions was still coming to light. The fall of the Murdaugh family, once so steeped in privilege and authority, had become a cautionary tale of greed, corruption, and violence that would resonate for years to come. In the months leading up to the trial, prosecutors worked diligently to build their case against Alex. The prosecution's argument was centered on a theory that Alex had orchestrated the murders to distract from his growing financial crimes. At the time of the killings, Alex's alleged embezzlement of millions of dollars from his law firm and clients was on the verge of being exposed. The theory suggested that Alex, in a desperate attempt to shift attention away from his financial ruin, had murdered his family members to generate sympathy and buy time to cover up his misdeeds. The prosecution also emphasized Alex's escalating opioid addiction, which they claimed had clouded his judgment and pushed him into a state of desperation. They argued that his drug habits not only fueled his financial crimes, but also contributed to his decision to murder Maggie and Paul, believing it was the only way out of the quagmire he had created. In the courtroom, the evidence presented by the prosecution was damning. Cell phone records, gunshot residue, and forensic evidence painted a picture of a man who was not the victim of circumstance, but the orchestrator of a chilling plan. Security footage from the Murdaugh estate showed Alex at the scene shortly before the murders, contradicting his original claim that he had been visiting his sick mother at the time of the killings. This timeline of events was a crucial piece of the prosecution's argument, as it placed Alex in close proximity to Maggie and Paul's murders. Further complicating Alex's defense was the testimony of key witnesses who had once been close to him. Friends, colleagues, and former employees took the stand, painting a portrait of a man who had lived a double life, one as a respected attorney and family man, and the other as a manipulative and deceitful figure who had lied to nearly everyone around him. These witnesses spoke of Alex's financial dealings, his attempts to cover up his crimes, and his deteriorating mental state in the months leading up to the murders. Perhaps the most heart-wrenching testimony came from the families of the victims. Maggie's and Paul's relatives, friends, and community members expressed their grief and disbelief at the tragedy that had befallen the Murdaugh family. The Beach family, still seeking justice for their daughter Mallory's death in the boat crash, attended the trial in hopes of finding closure. The defense, meanwhile, painted a vastly different picture of Alex Murdaugh. They argued that he was a broken man, grieving the loss of his wife and son, and that the accusations against him were based on circumstantial evidence and speculation. They claimed that Alex's opioid addiction had made him an easy target for manipulation, and that someone else, possibly someone with a grudge against the family, had committed the murders. In a dramatic move, Alex Murdaugh took the stand in his own defense. His testimony was emotional, as he spoke about his love for Maggie and Paul, and the immense grief he felt after their deaths. He admitted to his financial crimes and his opioid addiction, but vehemently denied being involved in the murders. "I would never hurt Maggie or Paul," he said through tears, maintaining his innocence. However, his cross-examination was brutal, with prosecutors questioning his credibility and pointing to the inconsistencies in his statements over the course of the investigation. As the trial progressed, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. The nation watched as the case unfolded, with news outlets providing daily coverage and legal experts weighing in on the proceedings. The case had become a media spectacle, with every new development fueling the public's fascination with the fall of the Murdaugh dynasty. In the closing arguments, the prosecution urged the jury to see through Alex Murdaugh's facade, arguing that he had manipulated those closest to him for years, and that the murders of Maggie and Paul were the ultimate act of self-preservation. They asked the jury to deliver justice for the victims, not just for the Murdaugh family, but for all those harmed by Alex's deceit, including the Beach family and the clients he had stolen from. The defense, on the other hand, implored the jury to consider the lack of direct evidence linking Alex to the murders and to question the motives of the prosecution. They framed Alex as a man caught in a tragic web of circumstances, a victim of his own poor decisions, but not a killer. After days of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict. Alex Murdaugh was found guilty of the murders of Maggie and Paul. The courtroom erupted in emotion, some in relief, others in shock. Alex Murdaugh, once a pillar of his community and a man who wielded immense power, was now a convicted murderer. In the aftermath of the trial, Alex Murdaugh was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. His fall from grace was complete, and the once powerful Murdaugh family legacy lay in ruins. The financial crimes, the wrongful death lawsuit from the Beach family, and the murders had all culminated in a tragic and shocking conclusion that left the entire community reeling. But the story of Alex Murdaugh and his family's downfall didn't end with his conviction. In the months and years that followed, investigations into his financial crimes continued, as law enforcement sought to recover the millions he had stolen from his clients. Several lawsuits were filed by those who had been harmed by his actions, and the ripple effects of his crimes spread far and wide. The Murdaugh case had captured the nation's attention, not only for its salacious details, but also for what it revealed about the dangers of unchecked power, privilege, and greed. It became a symbol of how even the most powerful families could fall when their secrets were exposed. And for those who had lost loved ones, Mallory Beach, Maggie, and Paul, the trial provided some measure of closure, though the scars of their loss would never fully heal. In the end, the Murdaugh saga served as a reminder that no one, not even those with deep roots and influence, is above the law. And while the courtroom battle may have ended, the echoes of the Murdaugh family's tragic downfall would resonate in the low country of South Carolina for years to come.